Bear down, fam. Let's start with this one straight up. Ryan Poles built a defense in 2025 that finished among the 7 worst in the league in sacks. And now, weeks away from training camp, the name circulating isn't 1, it's 3. Max Crosby, Vita Vea, Josh Sweat. 3 franchise-level players, 3 explosive contract situations, and in a minute, I'll explain why I think only one of these 3 deals has a real shot at getting done before the season. Colson Loveland just cracked the top 10 tight ends in the entire league, according to ESPN, and there's a detail buried in that ranking that completely changes how we should be thinking about Cole Kmet's future on this roster. I'm walking you through it with the numbers in hand. And in the backfield, Kyle Monangai is about to become DeAndre Swift's quietest headache. Nobody's talking about this the way they should be yet. I am. All of that right now. Let's get into it. Okay, fam, I need you with me on this one, because there's a lot of information here and I want us to understand it properly before we get excited about any of these 3 names. First, how we got here. The 2025 Bears defensive line was honestly a structural disaster. They finished among the 7 worst teams in the NFL in total sacks. They finished second to last in the entire league in pass rush win rate. That metric, measuring how often your line wins its individual matchup against the blocker in under 2.5 seconds. And on top of that, they had the 6th worst run defense and the 7th worst run stop win rate in the whole league. That's not a one-game weakness. That's a root problem on 2 fronts, the edge and the interior of the line. And the most frustrating part, bro, is that Poles already knew this. The same offseason, according to reports we've already covered on this channel, the Bears failed to aggressively address both the edge rusher position and the interior defensive line in free agency and the draft. So here we are in July with the same problem we had in March, just with less time to fix it before the regular season kicks off. Let's go through the 3 names one at a time. Max Crosby, the story that won't end. Let's start with the wildest of the 3 storylines. The Bears had already been part of this conversation back in March when Crosby was genuinely available on the trade market. At that time, the Baltimore Ravens won the bidding over the Dallas Cowboys, and it looked like Crosby was leaving Las Vegas, but the trade fell apart. The Ravens backed out over medical concerns after the physical. Crosby stayed with the Raiders and publicly said he was back with the team, that this is where he belongs. You'd think that's where the story ended. It's not. Columnist Vincent Bonsignor reported a couple of weeks ago that there's still a real possibility Crosby ends up in a trade between the Raiders and the 49ers, and that the same reasons that pushed the Ravens to try to buy him in March are still in play now. Listen closely here. That doesn't mean it's going to happen. It means the door never fully closed. So where do the Bears fit into this? Honestly, not much. If Crosby is back on the market, the real conversation is going to be between the Raiders and teams that are one piece away from a Super Bowl, like San Francisco. Chicago would first need to prove it can pay the entry price, which, according to the report, would be 2 picks, including a first-rounder plus a good young player. That's a contender's price tag, not the price of a team still rebuilding the trenches. And that's my honest doubt right there. I would love to see Crosby in navy and orange, but I don't see the Bears winning that bidding war if San Francisco's interest is real. Vita Vea, the one that could actually solve the run defense problem. This is the name that, personally, gets me the most excited out of the 3, and let me explain why with numbers, not vibes. Vea is in the final year of his contract with Tampa Bay and wants an extension. He wants it badly enough that he held in during June minicamp. NFL Network's Mike Garafolo reported that Vea and the Buccaneers are not close to a deal, and that Tampa is in no rush to get it done. That combination, a player who wants to get paid and a franchise that isn't in a hurry, is exactly the kind of friction that turns into a trade once the clock gets closer to the regular season. And here's the detail I think is crucial. Tampa Bay built their Super Bowl winning defense in 2020 around a dominant defensive line, and Vea was a central piece of that unit. This isn't a filler player. He's a 2-way anchor. Against the run, he's among the best in the league. And as an interior pass rusher, he's still a real threat at 31 years old. For a Bears defense that had the 6th worst run defense in the league in 2025, Vea isn't a luxury. He's exactly the missing piece. The likely cost would be a day 2 pick plus the need to give him a new extension. That's real money and real draft capital. But if you're asking my honest opinion, this is the only one of the 3 deals where the price and the need line up logically for Chicago. Josh Sweat. The contradiction, nobody's resolving. And here we've got the strangest situation of the 3 because the sources are literally contradicting each other. On one side, Kyle Odegaard reported that Sweat is unhappy in Arizona. On the other side, Ian Rappaport later came out saying the Cardinals have no intention of moving him. Those 2 things can't both be fully true at the same time, and I'd rather put both of them in front of you than hide it from you. My personal read, and I could be wrong, Arizona is in year 1 of a rebuild. Sweat will be crossing 30 before that team has a real contention window. His stock is coming off the best year of his career. 12 sacks, 55, for his career total. That's exactly the profile of a player a rebuilding team sells while the value is at its peak, no matter what this week's report says. NFL negotiations move fast, and we're not moving him. In July turns into, we accepted the offer in October more often than people think. If Chicago pulls this off, they'd get an edge rusher duo with Montez Sweat that would be among the most feared in the conference. The estimated cost would be a day 2 pick, far more accessible than Crosby, and that's the key part. It's the cheapest of the 3 deals, precisely because it depends on an uncomfortable situation getting a little worse, not on a team winning an expensive bidding war on the open market. Montez Sweat has been, without exaggeration, the most consistent piece this defense has up front, and pairing him with a player who just had the best season of his career would create exactly the kind of two-sided pressure a defensive coordinator needs, so he's not forced to blitz constantly all game long. That's the difference between a defense that generates pressure organically and one that has to gamble coverage just to get to the quarterback. My conclusion on all 3 names? Okay, let's land this. Of the 3, Vea is the one where the need and the cost line up most logically. Sweat is the one that depends on Arizona's public stance actually changing. And I'm betting it changes before the trade deadline if these 2 conditions happen. If Arizona starts the season losing, and if Sweat keeps expressing discomfort privately. And Crosby, honestly, probably ends up in San Francisco before Chicago if the Bonsignor rumor materializes. The Bears need to solve both fronts, edge and interior, if they genuinely want to compete with an offensive roster that's already ready to win now. And that's the real tension of this offseason. They've got the offense of a contender and the defensive line of a team in year 2 of a rebuild. I needed that breather after all those trade rumors because this next story genuinely has me proud as a fan. Let's go through the full story, because the number 7 you're seeing in the headlines doesn't even cover half of what's interesting here. How we got here: Colson Loveland arrived with pick number 10 in the 2025 draft out of Michigan. His rookie season, on paper, looks solid but not spectacular. 16 games, 82 targets, 58 receptions, 713 yards, 6 touchdowns. He led the team in receptions. Good, not explosive. But here's the detail people skip over. In the final 12 games of the season, counting 2 playoff games, Loveland caught 59 passes for 790 yards and 6 touchdowns. He basically matched his entire regular season production in half the games. And in those 2 playoff games, he set the NFL rookie record for most receiving yards in a single postseason with 193 yards. That's not a player who improved a little. That's a player who exploded at the exact moment football gets hardest. And there's an efficiency number I think matters more than any yardage total. 36 of his 58 catches moved the chains, meaning they generated a first down. That's more than 60% of his catches being situationally relevant, not garbage time stats. And when Caleb Williams targeted Loveland throughout the season, he finished with a passer rating of 123.6 and a completion percentage of 71.6. Those are elite quarterback numbers, generated specifically on throws to Loveland. The ESPN ranking and why the debate is healthy, ESPN polled executives, coaches, and scouts across the league for their annual top 10 tight ends ranking, and Loveland landed at number 7. But the juiciest detail is at the extremes. At least one voter ranked him as high as number 3, and at least one other voter didn't put him in their top 10 at all. That tells me Loveland is already generating strongly divided opinions around the league, and for a second-year player, that's a huge signal. The 6 ranked ahead of him are Brock Bowers of Las Vegas, Trey McBride of Arizona, George Kittle of San Francisco, Sam Laporta of Detroit, Tyler Warren of Indianapolis, and Tucker Kraft of Green Bay. Look at that list carefully. These are, for the most part, players with more years of established track record or who were already the absolute centerpiece of their offense from day one. Loveland is only in his 2nd year, and he's already 1 spot away from breaking into that conversation. And honestly, if you're asking me, I wouldn't be surprised if next year's ranking has him inside the top 5. The Kmet detail that changes the trade conversation. And here's what I really want you to absorb. Cole Kmet also showed up in this survey, with an honorable mention just outside the top 10. An anonymous personnel executive basically said Kmet is still a quality player, comfortable for a young quarterback, and solid in the run game, and that the Bears need to find a way to have Kmet and Loveland on the field at the same time. Listen closely, fam, because we ourselves have covered the Kmet trade rumors to Cleveland and Kansas City this offseason on this channel. And this data point from ESPN, coming directly from league executives, basically confirms what I've been saying. Selling Kmet right now would be giving away value for free. We're not talking about a filler tight end who lost his spot. We're talking about a player the league still views as top 15 or top 16 at his position, on a roster that also has a 3rd-round rookie, Sam Roosh, waiting his turn. Ben Johnson brought his offensive personnel philosophy from Detroit and Miami. where 2 and 3 tight end packages were the daily bread. The Bears already ran a ton of 12 and 13 personnel football last year. That means the solution to the problem of having too much talent at the position isn't selling one of the two. It's designing the offense so both are on the field at the same time, and the opponent has to choose which threat to respect more. My honest doubt, to be fair to you, I don't know if Loveland ends 2026 as the team's absolute number one receiver over Rome Odunze. A scout's evaluation saying he could be the team's best receiver is an opinion, not a confirmed fact. But what I can tell you with confidence is that the era of wondering whether to sell Kmet should be over. The numbers and the league's opinion say no. And to close things out, let's talk about something that's quietly brewing in the backfield that almost nobody is discussing with the seriousness it deserves. How we got here. The Bears started 2025 with a run game that was scary, and not the good kind. 119 rushing yards in the first loss, 134 in the second, with Caleb Williams leading the team in rushing yards in the season opener. No running back even reached 70 yards in that second game. It was a mess. That's where Kyle Manangai comes in, a 7th-round pick who started camp as a long shot to even make the roster. He turned into a necessary complement to DeAndre Swift as Ben Johnson's offense clicked into place. Yes, he hit the classic rookie wall late in the season, and there were stretches where he was practically invisible in the game plan, but he still closed the year with 783 rushing yards, the 5th best mark among all rookie running backs in the NFL in 2025. For a 7th-round pick, that's stealing a starting caliber player in the draft. Meanwhile, Swift survived trade rumors throughout last season and into the early stages of this offseason. He now enters the final year of his contract at 27 years old. And here's the cold reality of the NFL. Teams rarely commit big money to running backs approaching 30, especially when they already have a young, cheap, productive player at home waiting for his opportunity. My read, with the honest doubt that comes with it, I think the Bears are going to gradually push Monangai toward a bigger role, not overnight, but by spreading out more touches as the season goes on. Ben Johnson consistently used 2 backs in Detroit, so this doesn't necessarily mean Swift disappears from the roster. It means the touch split is going to gradually tilt toward the younger, cheaper option. And here's the speculative part I want to flag clearly as exactly that. Analytical speculation, not confirmed reporting. If Monangai shows in camp and in the early weeks that he can handle a bigger workload, I wouldn't be surprised if other teams start calling to ask about Swift's availability before the trade deadline. The problem is a running back in an expiring contract year typically doesn't generate much of a return in picks. So any Swift trade, if it happens, is probably more about clearing books than about building the future with picks. What I can tell you with confidence, this roster's surprise runner for 2026 is no longer an internal scouting secret. It's a fact on the table, and he's going to be one of the most interesting players to watch through the entire training camp. And there's one more thing I want to make clear before closing this section. This isn't necessarily bad for Swift or for the team. A backfield with 2 complementary runners, one more explosive in style and the other with the patience Manangai showed to find the right hole, gives Ben Johnson game plan options a lot of offensive coordinators would kill to have. The real risk isn't the internal competition. It's Poles deciding to sell Swift cheap just to clear cap space without first confirming whether Manangai can hold up over a full season workload. That's the fine line between smart asset management and a premature bet. Look at how all of this connects. This roster is being built at 2 different speeds. On one side, the defense needs outside reinforcements right now, today, before the season opens. And of the 3 names on the table, Vea is the one with the clearest logic for Chicago. On the other side, the offense doesn't need to go looking for anything outside anymore. Loveland, Kmet, and now Monangai are proof that Ryan Poles' draft work over the last 2 years is producing real results, with players outperforming their draft cost. This roster is one defensive piece away from stopping being a team with potential and becoming a real contender. That piece could arrive in the next few weeks, or it could never arrive if Poles can't close any of these 3 deals. And that uncertainty, honestly, is what makes this offseason so hard to predict with full confidence. Bear down, always. If this video helped you out, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me down in the comments, out of Crosby, Vea, or Sweat, which one would you bet this defense's future on? I want to read every single answer. See you in the next one.